Here now, Lara Trump 2020 campaign senior advisor. Lara, great to see you.
Hello.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Yes.
Hello to you. So the president is celebrating, marking the birth of democracy, giving that speech there today in Virginia, and interrupted by a protester, a delegate who's defending his decision to do that. What's the campaign's response to that?
Well, what you hear here is nothing different than we always hear about the president. It's always a call of racism. And my problem with this, and I think so many people's problem with continually using racism when we know that that is not true, when it is just a talking point for the left and so much of the mainstream media, is that when it actually is true, when there's real racism, people aren't going to pay attention to it anymore because people are so sick of hearing this narrative. Nothing that the president said this past week had any racist tones. Of course, people will try and make that insinuation, but you know, it's not surprising. Of course, there's protesters. That gentleman had a right to protest, but it's a shame that more people can't celebrate what the president did here today.
Is it a concern of the campaign that there you have the legislative Black Caucus deciding to boycott the event and not even show up?
I think it should be a concern of their own. I mean, unfortunately for them, if they wanted to see some movement on something happening in Baltimore, here was a great time. They could come meet with the president and say, you've called out what we know to be true. Baltimore is in shambles right now. This city and its people have been ignored and forgotten. And how can we help? How can we move forward? We know that you gave $16 billion in federal grants last year to Baltimore and to this specific district. Where has it gone? What has been done with it?
The president was asked when he was departing to Virginia today if he had any regrets over this feud over Baltimore and the rising feud with Elijah Cummings. He said no. Is there a strategy the president's deploying? He said no, to grow the president's base. I mean, what politically is at play here?
I mean, I think that I would give credit to the president for finally putting some light on a city that obviously has been left behind by its leaders. And you know, I don't see any strategy to it other than the fact that unfortunately, this is a city where you see that the crime rate is through the roof. It's got the same homicide rate as El Salvador, where people are fleeing to come to this country. And at least somebody is saying, let's do something about this.
If it's not Baltimore, though, does the president have a goal to grow his base? Because Brad Parscale, ahead of the Trump campaign,
yes,
he's suggesting this isn't about winning over new votes for the Trump campaign. Here's Brad.
Only about 70% or so of the population turns out to vote. We need to find those people. We need to get them to show up and get them to vote. It's not about trying to, go out there and try to, find some voter and change his mind. It's about getting the ones that support the president now and get them to show up at the polls and vote.
Well, I agree with that. First of all, I have always said I think the people that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 will 100% come back out and vote for him in 2020. But you are going to see a lot of people that did not vote for this president in 2016 for whatever reason it might be. And their life is a little bit better now. They have more money. They have a better job. They see opportunity growing for them in this country. And they don't want to change that, especially, Sandra, when you contrast that with what we see on the other side. And we're going to hear a lot about it tonight at these debates.
It's interesting. Politico had a piece why a strong economy will actually help Democrats in 2020. There are these regional pockets who have not benefited as much of the rest of the nation, and they see their vote for Donald Trump as not getting them perhaps a new job or higher wages or whatever that may be. I'm sure that's something you're looking at within the campaign, but I'm sure these numbers are also a concern for you. When it comes to women, you and I have chatted about this for quite some time. Here are the approval ratings of the president and his handling. Men, 47% approve. Okay, we've got that. Women, 34%, 61% right now disapprove of the president's job right now. Blacks, 6% approve. Hispanic, 40%, which is a high number, by the way. But how do you win over those female voters?
Well, we're working on that at the campaign. We launched a couple weeks ago our women's coalition, Women for Trump. We had over 1,000 women in Pennsylvania show up. We're going to replicate this across the country. We want women to know that you can support Donald Trump, and we want them to talk to their friends and talk to their coworkers and explain to them why this president is so good for women. I get that, but you don't have to look far to see the women who support Trump that say, well, some of this rhetoric, it gets to them. Some of the tweets, it gets to them. Do you fear that any of that is going to take away from some of those women who did ultimately vote for the president in 2016? You know what? I don't think so. I think when push comes to shove at the end of the day, when people are in a voting booth, whether you're a man or a woman, and you really reflect back on how things have changed in this country thanks to this president and how things are looking brighter better for you or your family, I really think people are ultimately going to vote for Donald Trump.
All right, throw up the new ad because this is going to be in the Detroit Free Press.
Yes.
The campaign just put this out. They are all the same. And pictured is those Democrats on the first debate stage saying that health insurance should go to all illegal immigrants in this country. It then lists the president's record of accomplishments. What Democrat on that stage tonight or tomorrow night does the campaign fear most? Who poses the biggest threat to Donald Trump?
I mean, I know I always say this, but we feel very solid at the campaign about the president's chances. And really, I don't think anyone has stood out as really a strong contender, especially, Sandra, when you see people raising their hands for universal health care for illegal immigrants into this country, people who broke our laws, yet we're ignoring the people that are citizens of the United States. So we're all looking forward to seeing what hand-raising moment we're going to have this debate and tomorrow night.
But you must be planning on something.
Well, we'll see who it turns out to be. I mean, we have a long road ahead of us.
Who would you like it to be?
Well, I'd be happy with Joe Biden. I think the president would too. You know,
Why?
I just think that he really doesn't have the stamina to go alongside this president toe-to-toe when it comes to campaigning, when it comes to debating. He looked very weak in the last debate to a lot of people. So if it's Sleepy Joe, as the president calls him, we'll be okay with that.
Some might think you're saying he's too old.
Well, you're only as old as you act and as old as you feel.
Interesting. The president's referenced him today. He does believe that Joe Biden will ultimately be his competitor on the general election debate
We're
stage.
okay with that.
So we will see. Lara Trump, always good to catch up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.